Good afternoon. I would like to welcome you to the Cabbage webinar. As we begin today, I would like to introduce myself. I will be your presenter for this afternoon's Cabbage webinar. My name is Lynette Dillon. I'm with National Crop Insurance Services, and I'm the Director of Training and Education. Some of my responsibilities include supervising national training activities. I also oversee the Training and Education Committee and manage the NCAS Crop Adjuster Proficiency Program, which is also known as CAP. I started working in crop insurance in 1984, and I have worked in an underwriting training capacity for 5 crop insurance companies before I joined NCIS back in 2009. One of my favorite things about crop insurance is that nothing about crop insurance ever stays the same. And last but certainly not least, some of my interests include traveling. I like to travel to all parts of the world. As I said, this afternoon we are going to discuss cabbage. We're going to review some crop insurance basics such as structure, provisions, and forms before we dive into the cabbage crop and look at the primary plan of insurance, along with some key definitions. Also, we're going to discuss where cabbage is available, the types and practices insured, prices and options, also perils and rules if you have a loss, and of course, how to locate the services of a crop insurance agent. Let's consider first the relationships that make up the federal crop insurance program. We're going to discuss the relationship with risk management agency, the approved insurance providers, agents, and farmers. The federal slide is split into the Federal Crop Insurance Corporation, or FCIC, and the Risk Management Agency, also known as RMA, with RMA acting as a manager for FCIC. Some of the roles that FCIC plays is to establish new and revised commodity crop insurance programs, policy provisions, rules, and regulations. The Risk Management Agency manages the FCIC and oversees the crop insurance program in addition to administering actuarial data, premium discounts, and provides support and outreach. Throughout the webinar, I may refer to the approved insurance provider as an AIP, the insurance provider, or your crop insurance company. During our time together today, all these terms refer to the company described on this slide. At this point, there are 15 crop insurance companies that have signed an agreement with the federal government to write the federal product, also known as MPCI. Approved insurance providers obtain strategic reinsurance agreement to sell and service the crop insurance policy through independent licensed agents. Let's take a look at agents. They provide product and premium information to the insured, collect the required information on approved forms, including the application, production report, and acreage report. They build relationships with farmers. It is up to them to stay current with the crop insurance program. They do receive a policy commission from the insurance provider. And the linchpin of the relationship is you, our farmers. You have the ownership in a crop and you enter into a contract to insure it. You must report the required information, pay all applicable premiums and fees, and follow appropriate good farming practices. You must notify your insurance provider in the event of a loss, and you'll receive an indemnity payment when an insurable loss occurs if the guarantee is not met. Before we dig into the details, we have to talk about a critical piece of the crop insurance puzzle: finding an agent. A crop insurance agent is your local expert and best resource on how, when, and what kind of crop coverage to add to your risk management toolkit. Crop insurance is available through independent crop insurance agents licensed in your state. It's just as simple as locating and going to the risk management agency website. If you want to just enter risk management agency into your browser, all you have to do is then click on the website. This is the actual website address, but again, if you can't remember that, just click Risk Management Agency or type that into the browser. Once you do that, you'll get to this screen and you'll click on Find an Agent towards the very top of your screen. Once you do that, the screen pops up where you can click on the RMA Agent Locator here. And if you take a look at the inside screen, that will allow you to search by distance, crop, language, or an agent name. All right, so the first thing we're going to do in our Cabbage webinar today is to review some basic provision reminders. This is going to be a quick refresher on person types, unit structures, organic coverage, and written agreements. First of all, I want to remind everybody who's listening to this webinar, we did do a crop insurance basic webinar recording on January 8th of this year. So if you want to go back and listen to that webinar, you're going to learn crop insurance basics, including all the details about the common crop insurance basic provision, which is the base policy for the crop provisions and the guidelines that we're going to discuss in this webinar. And if you look towards the bottom of the screen, you can see where the website address is. You're just going to go to cropinsuranceinaamerica.org, click on the webinars, then Pennsylvania, and then from there you can view all the webinars and all the calendar training that we've already offered and the offerings yet to come. All right, so let's first take a look at the part of the common policy called person type. Person type is the entity you operate as for your sales and marketing. For example, if you sell as an individual and you're married, you insure as an individual spousal person type. If you do business as a partnership with an employee identification number, you should insure under the partnership name and report that employer identification number that accompanies the partnership. As long as you stay within the guidelines of the crop insurance program, it's helpful to insure as the same entity with the same tax ID as you use for other government programs, particularly at the Farm Service Agency. On this slide, you also see the most commonly used person types. There are many other person types that are available if these don't fit your farming operation. A Social Security number is acceptable for individual and spousal policies, while the employer identification number is expected for partnerships, revocable trusts, and LLCs. Substantial beneficial interest, and the acronym for that is SBI. By the sales closing date, you need to report all persons with an interest in you as the insured person of at least 10%. You will include identification numbers, and all spouses are presumed to have a 50% interest in you as the insured person. If your person type would normally include a substantial beneficial interest, and you do not report those SBIs with valid identification numbers, your application cannot be accepted. Let's talk about an example of an SBI. Let's say there are two partnerships. Each has a 50% interest in the insured. Each partnership consists of two individuals, each with a 50% share of that applicable partnership. Each individual is considered to possess a 25% interest in the applicant or the insured. Therefore, both the partnership and the individuals would have a substantial beneficial interest in the insured. The spouses of the individuals would not be considered to have an SBI unless the spouse was one of the individuals that comprised the partnership. One of the things we definitely do need to discuss today is the AD 1026 form. This is known as conservation compliance. Farmers must comply with the highly erodible land conservation and wetland conservation provisions to be eligible for all the premium discounts. This form, again known as the AD 1026, must be on file with the Farm Service Agency on or before the premium billing date, and it covers all land in all states and counties in which the person has interest. It is very important to check your status by asking your crop insurance agent to check on it, or you can contact your local Farm Service Agency office. Why is it important that you check your status before you purchase a policy? It's very important because you may not be eligible for the premium discount if you don't have a file AD 1026 on file with the FSA. If you're not eligible for a premium discount and purchase a policy, guess what? You're going to be responsible for all the premium cost. On average, the USDA's Risk Management Agency pays 55 to 62% of premium costs. So it's very important to check with your crop insurance agent or your local FSA to confirm your AD 1026 status before sales closing date for the policy you wish to purchase. Because this is first and foremost an FSA program, it's ultimately your responsibility to find out your status. One of the most important things of the basic policy is the basic unit overview, or just units in general. I'm going to talk about two unit structures. I'll talk about the basic unit and the optional unit. First, let's go over the basic unit. This is all insurable acreage of the insured crop in the county on the date the coverage begins, in which the insured has 100% share in the crop, or land owned by one person and operated by another person on a share basis. There could be a premium discount for certain crops. All people who automatically get a federal policy automatically qualify for basic units. Let's talk about an example of a basic unit. The example is an insured owns land and rents land from 5 landlords, 3 on a crop share basis and 2 on a cash lease basis. The insured would be entitled to 4 basic units, 1 for each crop share arrangement and 1 that combines the 2 cash leases and the land owned by the insured. Next, let's discuss the optional unit overview. And specifically for cabbage, if it's available by types, you could have an optional unit if the separate types are designated in the special provisions. And for cabbage, those separate types would be red versus green. So if you want to qualify for an optional unit, you must file acceptable production reports for at least the most recent APH crop year in the base period, and of course provide acceptable production evidence for the most recent APH crop year of planted acreage and production. One of the things you need to remember is that although the optional unit structure is usually higher premium, it does allow for losses to be paid on a more granular level than basic units. There's usually a smaller land area involved in determining damage and production. Organic practices. Organic practices are becoming more and more popular throughout the United States. Crop insurance is provided for organic farming practice if it's specified on the county actuarial documents or allowed by written agreement. I do know for cabbage in the state of Pennsylvania, organic practices are offered. The offerings are certified organic acreage, transitional acreage being converted to certified organic acreage, and of course the buffer zone acreage. A written agreement must be in effect from a certified agent, and you can look at all the categories that must be on that written certificate. The cabbage crop does offer certified organic and transitioning to organic pricing. You will need to check with your agent for those current prices. Contract pricing may also be available for certified organic and transitional acreage. If organic pricing is not available by the crop or special provisions, it could be available under the contract price addendum. Again, I would check with your agent to see what's available for your state and county. Written agreements is very important for cabbage because cabbage is only available in one county in the state of Pennsylvania. If you would like to insure cabbage in other counties, it's important to get a written agreement. This is a document designed to provide crop insurance for insurable crops when coverage or rates are unavailable. A separate written agreement request must be submitted by each producer who has a share in the crop and for which each county for which the producer is requesting a change. If you need additional details regarding written agreements, we did do a webinar recording last month. Again, go to the Crop Insurance in America website and click on webinars to listen to that specific written agreement recording. The next part of our webinar, we want to discuss the forms that will need to be completed. There are 3 forms specifically: the application, production reporting, and acreage reporting. You're required to file certain paperwork with your agent by the set deadline. So let's highlight a few requirements. First of all, let's talk about the application. Your application must include your name, address, tax ID number, and substantial beneficial interests, along with your selected plan of insurance, county, crops, coverage level, prices you want on each crop, and much more. It's a good idea to plan to spend some time with your agent completing the form. One mixed box can have a big impact on your coverage. If you produce in 2 counties, you can choose to insure one county but not the other, or different coverages can be selected in each county. The bottom line is you must insure all acres of a crop in the county in which you have a share. When your insurance provider receives your properly completed and timely submitted application, it will process your application, send you a copy or a summary of coverage, and also a set of policy documents. Once the application is accepted, you can't cancel the policy the initial crop year. Production reporting is the next form that must be completed. The deadline for that's the earlier of the acreage report, or 45 days after sales closing. You must report production in acres. You must have acceptable production evidence to support the information on your production report. One thing to always remember: complete records of the planting, replanting, inputs, production, harvesting, and disposition of the crop on each unit must be retained for 3 years after the end of the current crop year. Lastly, let's discuss the acreage report. You must annually report for each insured crop in the county the number of insurable and uninsurable acres planted, the date the crop was planted, your share in the crop, acreage location, the farming practice used, and the types of varieties must all also be reported. This information is used by your insurance provider to establish the amount of coverage and also the premium for the crop. You need to meet all the policy deadlines or coverage could be denied. Next, let's delve into the plan of insurance along with definitions. Did you know that there's only one plan of insurance for cabbage? That plan of insurance is referred to as Actual Production History, or APH plan. This is the oldest but still active federal crop insurance plan of insurance. It protects against yield losses due to naturally occurring events. You can select a coverage level. This is a percentage of your approved yield to insure, and choose to insure from 55 to 100% of the risk management agency published crop price. This plan of insurance uses your actual production history for the crop in the county to develop your databases. It is required to have 4 to 10 years of history to determine an approved or final APH yield for each database. Now, don't worry if you don't have 4 to 10 years of history. We can substitute transitional yields to build up your database. The production or yield guarantee equals the approved APH yield times your coverage level. And an indemnity may be due if the harvested production plus any appraised production, called production account, is less than the production guarantee. So before we go much further, we need to discuss some key definitions. The first thing I want to talk about on this slide is, remember, there is no processing contract required for fresh type. And at this time, fresh type is the only type insurable in the state of Pennsylvania. Some key definitions include direct marketing. This is the sale of the insured crop directly to consumers without the intervention of a mediary such as a wholesaler, retailer, packer, processor, shipper, or buyer. Some examples of direct marketing include selling through an on-farm or roadside stand, could be a farmer's market, or just permitting the general public to enter your field for the purpose of picking all or a portion of the crop. Planted acreage is the next key definition I want to talk about. Cabbage plants and seeds must initially be planted in rows wide enough to permit mechanical cultivation. Cabbage planted or seeds planted in any other manner will not be insurable unless provided by the special provisions or by a written agreement. Inspected transplants. The definition for that are cabbage plants that have been found to meet the standards of the public agency responsible for the inspection process within the state in which they are grown. And of course, harvest is pretty simple. That's the cutting of the cabbage plant to sever the head from the stalk. Marketable cabbage is cabbage that's sold or grades at least U.S. commercial for fresh market cabbage or U.S. number 2 for processing cabbage. So let's focus on cabbage. And the next few slides come directly from the cabbage crop provisions. First of all, cabbage is insured by type and practice. Direct marketed cabbage is insurable. And cabbage to be marketed as coleslaw is considered fresh market cabbage and is insurable as fresh cabbage. So to be insured, cabbage must be planted with inspected transplants or hybrid seeds without interplanting, planted within the planting periods, grown to be sold as fresh cabbage, and of course planted in rows wide enough to permit mechanical cultivation unless otherwise approved by written agreement. What is not insured is land on which club root was detected within the previous 10 years or black rot was present in any of the previous 4 years. That is not insurable. Let's go through county types and practices. First of all, county. Schuylkill County is the only county in the state of Pennsylvania that you can insure cabbage. As far as types go, red and green is available, both fresh types. And as far as practices, let's take a look at that. Summer planted, conventional, certified organic, and transitioning to organic is all the insurable practices. Prices for the 2019 crop year. Now, as far as prices go, the policy says you may select only one price selection for all the cabbage in the county insured under the policy, unless the special provisions provide different price elections by type. In that case, you can select only one price selection for each cabbage type. But in the state of Pennsylvania, red or green for fresh price options are available. The established price, and again, this is established by the Risk Management Agency, is $17.30. The catastrophic price is $9.52. Organic pricing is available. For the established price, it's $43.25. And notice the catastrophic price of $23.79. And if you're dealing with a contract price, here's the maximum contract price allowed. If you're transitioning to organic, the established price goes back to something very similar to the established price just for the fresh marketing. Take a look at the maximum contract price for transitioning to organic. Now let's discuss coverage levels and premium discount. Premium discount percentages and available coverage levels are shown in the chart below. Your share of the premium is 100% minus the premium discount percent. So let's take a closer look at the table. Coverage levels range from 50% to 75% of your average yield and are subsidized as shown in the premium discount line. For example, an average actual production history yield of 300 hundredweight per acre results in a guarantee of 150 hundredweight per acreage at the 50% coverage level. The coverage level modifies your 100% production guarantee as determined based on your actual production history and any other modifiers, and leaves a portion of the risk with you. For example, at 75%, you have the equivalent of a 25% deductible. Remember, we do have catastrophic risk protection coverage. That's the lowest coverage available. It is fixed at 50% of your average yield and 55% of the price election. The cost for cat coverage is an administrative fee of $300. However, when the new farm bill becomes effective, cat fees will increase to $655. Usually, a lot of people don't choose cat coverage. It's the lowest type of coverage, and it doesn't really do a good job at covering your risk. The insurance period begins later of the date of application or when the cabbage is planted. It ends the earliest of harvest of the crop, the date the crop should have been harvested, a final adjustment of a claim, abandonment of the crop, total destruction of the crop, or November 25th. All right, let's talk and review the crop year important deadlines. We've already talked about a few of these. I tried to put the majority of these dates in the order of a crop insurance cycle. What I mean by a crop insurance cycle is the first deadline starting the new year is the sales closing date. So we're getting real close to the first sales closing date in the state of Pennsylvania for cabbage. This is the only sales closing date, as a matter of fact. It is March 15th. That's right around the corner. Production reporting, this is where you turn in the prior year's production. That will be April 29th. Final plant date, July 20th. Acreage reporting date is August 15th. The contract change date I put in here is November 30th. That's when Risk Management Agency can update, revise the policy. Premium billing date, September 15th, and premium due is October 31st. And you need to pay the premium by October 31st to avoid any interest. The end of the insurance period is November 25th, and termination date would be March 15th of next year. Coverage and premium. I did real quick examples here in the next few slides of guarantee, liability, and potential premium. So let's review that. First of all, let's go over guarantee and how to calculate guarantee. And in this example, we're going to assume 65% coverage level for summer planted fresh market cabbage with an APH yield of 400 hundredweight per acreage and just one basic unit. So in order to calculate the guarantee, you would take the APH yield per acre times the coverage yield to get the acre guarantee. Remember, to get the total guarantee, you just take that and multiply by the insured crop acres. So our example here is the 400 APH yield, and remember this is 400 hundredweight per acreage. Multiply that times your coverage level 65% to get your 260 acre guarantee. Pretty simple, but that's how we get the guarantee. Let's take a look at liability. We take the per acre guarantee from the previous slide, multiply that times the insured crop acreage, and you know, for this example today, I just used 15 acres. And we're going to multiply that times the established price. Remember, a few slides ago, we saw the established price for fresh market cabbage was $17.30. And we take that and multiply your share in the crop to come up with the liability. So let's put some numbers to that. The 260 acre guarantee, remember that comes from the previous slide. We take that and multiply it times 15 acres, multiply by the price election established by the Risk Management Agency of $17.30. And that's the price election for 2019, by the way. And you want to multiply that times your share in the crop to come up with the $67,407 worth of liability. Let's take that one step further and talk about premium. Now, what I did something very quick and easy. I went to the Risk Management Agency website. Remember, you can get there by just typing in Risk Management Agency into your browser, and they have a calculation tool on their browser that you can find that on the first page of their website. It's called a premium estimator. I just entered the elements that we've just been discussing over the last two slides, and I asked it to calculate. It's very easy. So I just put some numbers on this slide, not the entire calculation. Remember that the risk management agency sets the premium rates and publishes that information in the actuarial documents. So in our example today, based on the last two slides that we discussed, the total premium is $9,446. In order to get that total premium, you take the liability from the previous page, or previous slide, which was $67,470, and you multiply that times the premium rate that you can get to with that premium calculator. Now, the good news is you're going to pay the producer premium, because that's the whole point of the premium discount that risk management agency offers. So if I take the total premium, which was $9,446, and multiply that times the 59% premium discount, I get the $3,873. All right, let's delve into losses a little bit. Insurance is provided to protect against unavoidable, naturally occurring events. The causes of loss are listed in the basic provisions. So let's go over those. Cover causes of loss are adverse weather, including conditions such as hail, frost, freeze, wind, drought, and excess precipitation. It could be failure of the irrigation water supply, fire, could be insect damage and plant damage, wildlife, earthquake, and volcanic eruption. What is uninsured is what I put on this next slide. The following is not an insurable cause of loss, and that would be quarantine, boycott, refusal of the buyer to accept production, or any other failure to market the cabbage other than actual physical damage from an insured cause of loss. In addition to that, damage that occurs or becomes evident after the end of the insurance period, including damage that occurs or becomes evident after the cabbage is placed in storage. With the cabbage crop provisions, there is a replanting reimbursement. So let's talk about what that actually means. A replant payment is allowed if the crop is damaged by an insurable cause of loss to the extent that the remaining stand will not produce at least 90% of the production guarantee, and it is practical to replant. The maximum amount of the replanting payment per acre is the number of hundredweight specified in the special provisions, multiplied by your price selection and your insured share. Now, the special provisions for the state of Pennsylvania for Schuylkill County indicate that the maximum amount of the replanting payment per acre is 50 hundredweight for reseeding and 40 hundredweight for transplanting. There is one replant payment that will be made for acreage replanted during each planting period within the crop year if separate planting periods are allowed by the special provisions. Your duties in the event of damage or loss. So if you do have damage, you have to report it to your agent. There are 4 categories here that I just want to go over first. So if damage occurs 15 days or more prior to the beginning of harvest, you have to give notice to your agent within 72 hours of discovery. If damage occurs within 15 days of harvest or during harvest, you need to give notice immediately so that a crop inspection can be performed, and leave 3 rows of unharvested crop per field for sampling. Let's talk a little bit about that 3 rows here. According to the crop provisions, the samples must be at least 3 rows wide, extend the entire length of each field in the unit, and must not be harvested or destroyed until the earlier of our inspection or 15 days after completion of harvest on the unit. The third category is if any damage or if any acreage on the unit will not be harvested, you need to give notice at least 15 days before harvest would normally begin. And last but certainly not least, if any acreage will be put to a use other than the use identified on the acreage report, such as fresh going to processing, you need to give notice at the beginning of harvest. Adjuster duties. First of all, the adjuster needs to determine the loss on a unit and settle the claim. Everybody uses the same risk management agency loss adjuster procedures to determine their loss. First of all, your company's loss adjuster will contact you shortly after the company receives your notice of loss. Your adjuster will set up an appointment to visit your farm to inspect the damaged acreage. They're also going to determine the cause of loss and how many acres are damaged. They'll determine the percent of damage, and they're going to defer the loss adjustment if they can't determine the percent of loss. They'll revisit and reinspect after the deferral period. They will take actual plant counts from representative parts of the field to determine the amount of damage. They could consider different factors based on the crop and the stage of growth. Probably photograph the damage, often with a ruler or other measurable object in the picture for scale. This could be you. Your adjuster may also request the paperwork from you, such as contract, production records, and any sales records. They will complete all the needed paperwork. They also go through on how they came to their findings and walk you through the adjustment worksheet. You and the adjuster will sign the documents and agreement, and you'll be issued an indemnity or replant reimbursement within 30 days of the later of loss agreement or complete of arbitration or reconsideration or final judgment. So let's go through a little bit about how to calculate an indemnity payment. Again, I just did something really quick and simple here. Let's go through the elements first. In order to get an indemnity payment, as far as going through the calculation, you're going to need to know the acres, the total production guarantee in hundredweight, the price, your share in the crop, and of course, production account. Now, production account includes all harvested and appraised production from the insurable acres on the unit, plus harvested production from any other insurable unit if that production was used to fulfill a process or contract on the lost unit. So let's go through just a real quick and easy indemnity calculation. In this example, we have 400 APH yield, and remember that's a 400 hundredweight, times your coverage level of 65%, and that gives us the 260 acre guarantee. Now remember, we already figured this on a previous slide when we were discussing guarantee, liability, and premium. So after you get the 260 acre guarantee, you're going to subtract that from your production to count. In our example here, I just used 160 of the production account. Remember, this is harvested and appraised production, and we come up with 100 production loss per acre. We take that 100 loss per acre times the price selection of $17.30, and we get a 1,730 indemnity per acre. Now remember, the example above is based on 1 acre. Your insured share plus additional acreage will be taken into account when calculating a loss. All right, so to summarize our Cabbage webinar today, I would certainly encourage you to talk with your agent about policy details, current year pricing, and coverage options. Also, your agent can run coverage quotes for you to determine what best fits your risk management needs. Some quick reminders. Remember, Cabbage is only available in one county in Pennsylvania. However, you may be able to get coverage through a written agreement. Again, that has to be done before sales closing date. Also, I would encourage you to maintain detailed records and be ready to share those records with your loss adjuster. Last but certainly not least, I want to thank everybody for listening to our Cabbage webinar today. Let us know how we did. You will be receiving a survey tomorrow. It's a very easy, simple survey. It will just take you a few seconds to complete. We do appreciate your feedback and we do consider it important. Again, thank you for listening and good luck with your risk management.